Okay, let's start. It's 4 o'clock. We said we're going to start at 4. We should end at 6. That's the plan. I want to welcome everyone here today. What a great gathering. Wonderful to see everyone. My name is Sherry Ebyam, and I will be your MC for this forum. We will start with a land acknowledgement, which will be led by Denise Jesse.
Hi, my name is Denise, and I have been honored to work with the League of Women Voters of Mendocino County, Little Lake Grange, the Mendocino Women's Political Coalition, the Willits Environmental Center, and the Willits Indivisible to bring this forum to the community. We felt it was important to begin this meeting with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we live and work on stolen land. We recognize Mendocino County as the ancestral homeland of the Pomo peoples, the Yuki, and related indigenous nations of this region. We honor the enduring presence of these communities despite the violence through which this land was taken. We commit to honoring this land through our work in support of our communities and through thoughtful stewardship of the land that we share. Thank you.
Thank you. For this forum, we have 4 candidates running for 3rd District Supervisor. Our 3rd District represents Willits, Laytonville, Covelo, and their surrounding areas. Before we get any further, I really want to thank all the people that were involved in helping organize and put this forum together. We'd like to thank RJ for setting up the room with help from his friends. Thank Al Rosen and Willits TV for the sound and video. This forum can be viewed on YouTube if you type in Willits TV, and it can also be viewed on Comcast Channel 3 if you have Comcast or access to it. I'd like to thank Denise Jesse, Jane McCabe, and Linda McClure for taking questions from the audience. Your question, if it's asked, may not sound exactly like what you wrote, but it will address your topic or issue. We would like to thank Carol Press for being our timer. In addition, I'd like to thank other members of our organizing committee: Madge Strong, Janice Lombardi, Prana, Claudia Wenning, Judy Burtis, and Annie Waters. Also, I would like to invite Claudia Wenning, who would like to say the Grange mission statement for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Little Lake Grange. The Little Lake Grange provides opportunities to enhance our community today and for the generations of tomorrow by working to improve the health and quality of life and encouraging food security, food production, farmland preservation, community self-sufficiency, love of family, education, and grassroots legislative action. Welcome.
Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening statements. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Candidates will also have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Question format. We have some prepared questions that the organized committee already put together. We will also be taking questions from the audience. We invite you to submit your questions during this event. The moderator may, as I mentioned, may modify submitted questions for clarity or combine several submissions into a single question. Engagement. We ask that all candidates stick to their allotted time. We have a timekeeper right here, Carol Press is our timekeeper to ensure that the forum proceeds smoothly and that each candidate has an equal opportunity to speak. We also ask that all participants, both candidates and audience members, engage in a respectful and civil manner. Any persons who engage in personal insults or attacks will be asked to be silent or will be removed. Order of candidate responses. For the first question, we'll start with Buffy, and then go to Clay, and then Russ, and then Eric. For the second question, we'll start with Clay, and we'll continue down and come back to Buffy. Third question, we'll go to the third person, and so you each get to answer first, and we rotate. Let's start with opening statements. Buffy, you have 3 minutes?
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you everyone for showing up today. I really appreciate it. My name is Buffy Wright Bourassa, and I'm running for Mendocino County Supervisor for District 3 because I believe our communities deserve people who are willing to bring us all together. So that we have our voices at the Board of Supervisors. We're making decisions together. I believe that future for District 3 includes having safer, stronger, and full of opportunity where families can thrive, small businesses can grow, and our roads and infrastructure are improved, and our county government works with the people, right, and not around them. My platform is centered on matters that matter most, public safety, roads, infrastructure, local jobs, and economic opportunity, and accountability in our county government. But more than anything, this campaign is about people. That is what it is to me. My work in county government over the last 11 and a half years has really centered around people. I started out in human resources. I moved over to public health, where I spent at least 6 years working throughout Mendocino County, making connections with our fire departments, our law enforcement, our schools, working on a subject that a lot of us don't want to talk about or look at, but it was really important, and it was the opioid epidemic. And it was affecting our community like nobody's business. We were off the charts with opioid overdoses. We did not have Narcan in this county, and we had a lot of pushback at first because it was an unknown. And I spent those 6 years educating this community and getting us in a place where we're much better now, and we are not number 1 or number 3 in the state for opioid overdoses, and I'm very proud of that. And there's some other work that I did as well. So I'm running because I believe in this district. I believe the people who call it home, and I believe that we can have a stronger future together. Thank you.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Clay Romero. I've been in the area for 51 years, and it's largely been my home that entire time. I moved here with my folks when I was 14 years old, and I'll be coming up on 66 here very soon. My particular thing for the running for the board is I would very much like to see better economic conditions. Specifically, anything that produces a physical product is very important. We can operate off of tourism, and we can operate off of the service jobs that we have, but we're not going to be able to do real well until we can actually have some physical thing. As you know, for a time it was timber, and I understand from some of the old timers at one time it was hops. And then here lately it was cannabis. But I know things have been very, very difficult in that regard. Now, there's 5 basic things that I do recognize are very important to just the people, and it's what they expect from their elected officials. The first is safety. And this is where we get, like our sheriff's department, the fire protection guys, our local police. And these are all things that are very, very important that need to be funded, because they separate us from disastrous situations, and I'm thankful for that. The second thing is economic stability, which is what I was touching on by having a physical product. And I know this is going to be very, very important to do. The third thing is environmental cleanliness. And, you know, I don't think there's anybody that says, you know, I just want to destroy the land. You know, I really think that it's really important that we're going to need this, not for ourselves, but for our children. It's extremely important. So I'm very, very mindful about environmental cleanliness. The fourth thing is freedom. And I think our freedom should extend until we start bumping into the freedoms of somebody else. And I don't think this is too much to ask. And the fifth thing that I want to be mindful of is basic fairness. And I know that people will tell me the world is not fair. And I get that. But there's certain things, particularly coming from the county, that when people put down money for a permit, I would like to see where they actually get something from it sometime before they die. Time is money. It's very important. Thank you.
Well, I'm not much of a showman, so it's hard for me to stand here and try to sell you something. It's hard for me to sell you that I'm smart, virtuous, hardworking, and tough, yet kind, even though I think that is true. I view this campaign as a duty, a direct response to what we have all been through over the last few years. I'm not trying to convince you to vote for me. I am simply offering you the opportunity should you be tired of the status quo. I'm not doing this for a job, for power, for revenge. I am doing it because I cannot stand any longer to see the injustices inflicted upon us all by our own government, and in many cases, even by our own county. I am tired of a corrupt political system dominated by unions and political parties and special interests that has forgotten that the purpose of a government is to serve the people, not be their overlord. We the people have been placated and ignored over and over and over, and I stand for something different, something real, something honest and well-intentioned. Many politicians that came before me were worried about their reputation and their votes more than anything else. I am worried about none of these things. I only worry about leaving this place better than I found it, of being a good steward, and of getting the people their personal liberties and rights back. My platform is really pretty simple. Encourage economic activity through deregulation, bring fiscal accountability to the spending of our sacred tax dollars, restore personal liberties, and restore power to the individual. In other words, to get the government off your back and out of your wallet. I am different, not necessarily a radical, but I can see that we need to change our government, and in a lot of ways, our society as well, both of which have been torn apart by polarization and extremism. I was forged by fire my entire life, from growing up through high school here during the weed boom and all that entailed, the lifted up trucks, the crime, the fast money, the militarized police, to the regulatory nightmare which is legalized cannabis, to its now somewhat downfall. I've seen what happens when a government tries to help and ends up destroying a way of life. I've been married, I've been divorced, I have 2 kids, I've built a house, I've built businesses, and I now likely run the most sophisticated AI cluster in the county. A tool that without, I probably wouldn't have even been able to find the time to file the paperwork for this election. My heart is in the right place, I deeply care, and I have the technical skills to fix the county's broken systems and the vested local interest to never stop fighting for you. My name is Russell Green. I'm a 5th-generation resident of this county, and I'd be honored to have your vote.
So good afternoon. Thanks for coming out today. My name's Eric Hart, and I'm running for Supervisor because I think we can do better at turning good intentions into real results for our communities. Mendocino County doesn't lack in good ideas, and it doesn't lack in good employees. It has a vision problem, and it has an execution problem. Like everyone else up here, I care deeply about this county. Where I'm different is in my experience, what I've spent my career doing. I've worked for more than 25 years in operations and leadership roles, managing large budgets, fixing broken systems, and making organizations that actually deliver what they promise. Not just listening, not just talking, not just planning, but actual execution. I've done that at scale with companies like AT&T, and I've done it through my own consulting for local small businesses and nonprofits. I've also served our community directly. I started a fire safe council that serves over 1,000 residents outside of Willits. I've helped bring the Willits Center for the Arts back from the brink after COVID. I'm also on the board of the County Fire Safe Council, of of the Community Foundation Advisory Council, and I've served two separate terms on the County Civil Grand Jury. What I've learned through all of this is that most of the challenges we're facing as a county aren't because we don't know what the problems are. We do. We all know what the problems are. The issue is follow through. How decisions get made, how money is managed, and whether we actually deliver consistent, manageable results for the people who depend on us. That's where I focus, is clear priorities and accountability and fixing the systems that aren't working and supporting those that are. I also believe that government should be transparent, practical, and grounded in the real lives of the people that it serves. My wife and I live out off-grid outside of Willits, so I understand firsthand the challenges that many of our rural residents face, from infrastructure to emergency preparedness to just basic everyday services. At the end of the day, this campaign isn't about politics. It's about making county government work better for the people who live here. How to do that is 6 steps. The first is the internal county operations. That's the foundation for everything. From there, we go on to economy and the housing, public safety and infrastructure, healthcare, and then the environment. Those are all based on that first one. We can't get any of those done if we don't fix the operations of the county government first. So if you're looking for someone who will focus on execution, accountability, and real results, I'd be honored to earn your vote.
So now we will start with our questions. I was just seeing if you were paying attention. So let's start with Clay, if you would be the first respondee to this question. The topic is accountability. Priorities are the most important tasks, goals, or values that merit attention before others, helping to manage time, energy, and resources. With this in mind, what would be your top 3 priorities as a newly elected District 3 supervisor?
I would think probably my first priority was to see what we can do for getting our local economy going. I know that when people come in and they put down money for a permit, that value of money that they put down should be consistent with what they would reasonably expect to receive. You can't just put any old value on it and treat the people like a cash cow. It has to be consistent. And how could I put this where it's something that people could reasonably identify? This type of thinking came about when I heard a story from a man who had a house crushed in the outlying areas by snow. And so he called up a guy from the Bay Area, they cut it up and they hauled it off. And then he went to get a permit to build a house. But before he could get a permit to build a house, he had to get a demolition permit. Well, of course he says, well, there's no mobile home here anymore. But he nonetheless was coerced into paying money to get that demolition permit, to have a guy come out to confirm that, well, it's not there. There's things like this that just drive people nuts. The people here, let's forget about all the politics. These are our customers. They deserve to be served like valued customers. And I think the county has not been doing that. So making it just fair and reasonable with people would be probably the primary thing I would go after first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, since this is basically a powerless position by itself, My first order of duty would be to figure out what and how I can get 3 more votes, especially like Clay just said on the issue of planning and building reform. The number one thing at the county level that needs to happen. Almost all the other issues we are having come back to that one in one way or another. Next, I would freeze hiring because I think the incoming technological renaissance and job displacement that is coming, that we will need to streamline, downsize, and automate the government. Computers don't take retirement pensions, so I'd be looking to increase IT funding. I'd also be looking to start an audit of every debit and credit at the county and see if there are easy things to cut or where the money is actually going. Our county has an income of around $750 million, according to their own budget documents, and let's find out where that's actually going and what we can cut. Also, every single time I can vote for more liberty or freedom for the people, I will. That's not a talking point, that's a promise.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned before, the foundation is the county government itself, how the county operates. So that's where things need to start. The first thing to do is start looking at why isn't our government operating the way it should? And that comes back to root cause analysis, which is what I did for 25 years. I've already started that process by talking to our county leadership, the department heads, to find out what's going on there. The biggest issues they're facing right now are that they have not been modernized. Their Munis system, which was installed 20 years ago, they stopped that process halfway through, never fully completely installed it, and they're still managing paperwork back and forth on spreadsheets. The other system, Momentum, that runs our property taxes, I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, you'll get duplicate notices. You get notices that change from one to the next, say you owe money, and then you don't owe money. Those are indications of how our county is not operating properly. From there, once we figure out how much money we have and where the money is coming from and where it's going, then we can start figuring out what we're doing next. The next step is to look at our new CEO and our new government and change the culture of how our county operates. The county needs to operate with a customer service focus, finding a way to yes. After that, it's building a platform for those next 6 steps. The economy, housing, public safety and infrastructure, healthcare, and the environment. Those are the focus items that we can build, kind of a 100-day plan on, but we can't build that without a government that works and understanding what tools we have to work with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the top 3 priorities that I would work on when I got started, I'm really excited about this question, by the way, because I was at home before this and I was thinking, oh, what am I going to say? And I didn't know what the questions were going to be. So I'm kind of glad that I knew that I should answer this one. The first one is improve roads, infrastructure, and emergency access, because those are like basic things that we need right now, right? I don't know about you, but I live out in the valley and my road is tore up. We have mitigation property out there and big trucks have been coming through, so we need them fixed. And I'm sure, I know there's roads that are worse than mine. And we also need better maintenance and stronger evacuation processes, like up there in Brook Trails. I don't know about you, but I'm worried about the people that I love and my family and friends in our community that are up there, and in case they need to get out of there in a hurry. Second thing is strengthen public safety and community stability. We need a full sense of the word, not just law enforcement, not just fire and emergency responses, but behavioral health support, reentry, and prevention. The third thing is make our county government and more accountable, more transparent, right? So that when you're looking at the budget, you're not confused. When you go to the website, you understand that it's there. Everything is already posted. There's nothing really hiding. It's just about making it easier to access. Am I not right? Being in the county, I understand how all of these systems have worked and what comes in and out. And so I'm really well versed in those systems and feel like I would make a strong commitment to these priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Our next question focuses on budget and accountability. And the question, with declining revenue, should departments be accountable for managing within their budget? And what are the consequences for not?
Okay, well, I'm not really a public sector guy, but I know that in the private sector, if you go over your budget or spend out of your means, you go out of business immediately. And all of our tax money that they collect, I consider to be sacred. So I think it's very important that the departments themselves make sure that they are within budget, and that the categories in which the budget reports are accurate. I also think that in the public sector, there's a lot of weird accounting that goes on. And I'd be interested to dig into that and see where exactly the money goes, because 750 million from my understanding of gross revenue for our county, that's a lot. And I don't really know where it all goes, and I don't think it's all being spent as efficiently as it could be.
So department heads are already held to their budgets. They are very clearly told what their budgets are. The problem is things change during the year. So one thing that the county needs to do better, and we talked about this a little bit, is managing the budgets within the organizations and understanding what they are. Today, when a budget changes, Munis isn't really capable of handling that, and it's not capable of keeping not just the department heads, but the Board of Supervisors up to date on what's happening. So there's no way of keeping ahead of those changes and understanding that, oh, we're on a trend to go over budget, we need to maybe make adjustments. So we're back again to the core changes that need to happen to modernize our county and make it run efficiently, so the people that run those departments have the tools to make those decisions. We also need a stronger representation from our Board of Supervisors and leadership by example. Last year, February Board of Supervisors meeting, it came out that they were 16% over budget themselves. How can they be asking the rest of our departments to make 6% cuts across the board when they're 16% over themselves? Leadership by example goes a long way. The third thing would be to work with this new CEO that comes in and make sure that we have a good structure for these departments to understand where their budget money is coming from, what their priorities are, and where they should be spending that money, so that we aren't spending it on things that are not needed and aren't necessary, and that the valuable money that's coming in from our constituents and our residents are going to the right place and being spent in the right way.
Thank you.
I can understand that question seems to be valid, but at the same time, working in the county, I have a real intimate knowledge that our department heads are following their budget. Some of the things that people are not accounting for is things like wildfires, right? Floods, COVID. These things change the dynamics in budgets really quick. So, or if unfortunately, we have high crime rates in certain areas of our county. When murders happen, those things cost a lot of money. And so that inflates our budget extremely. I know that that's been a hot topic. We've been talking about it. We think that, maybe our directors and our Board of Supervisors aren't following those budgets. They worked really hard in the last couple years to really stop spending as much money and bring down like 6%. And when we say the Board of Supervisors went over by 16%, I mean, we need to get honest about this. That's 5 people. They're not going on all the trainings that we need them to go on. They're not going out and meeting the state leaders and the federal leaders to ask for more money, to make sure that the dollars that we deserve are coming into this county. Those are the things that we need. So we need to re-look at what we're talking about when we say budget deficit, and look at how are we bringing in money, how are we spending, and then look at how we're spending that money. The money, I don't think, is being nefarious. There's nothing nefarious going on. And I know that's me going out on a limb and maybe asking you to believe in something that you may not have, it may have not been a popular thing. But being a county employee, as a program manager for the last few years, working in those programs, I understand what our budgets are doing and what our leaders are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Concerning budgets and accounting, I've often heard people say that oh, we have a balanced budget and we're staying inside of it. And although that sounds nice, what I really want to know is, how much did you spend? And what did you spend it on? And this is really at the crux of the matter. I happened to print out a piece of the budget here that I was looking at, and I don't quite understand what's going on here, but I believe this is the sheet that went along with what's paid to the Board of Supervisors. And it says here that they're budgeting $93,900 for, looks like county health insurance. In 2022, it was $52,000. Why is this? Is just because it's an insurance company, it's okay to spend the public's money on this? Can we do something different here? Now, for me, I happen to be familiar with health insurance funding systems. I designed a healthcare funding system for the United States. I understand it well. And if I'm elected, I would really like to see if we can do something here locally that would save people at least a third on their health. It's very, very expensive. I also noticed that what was formerly a special department expense of $14,000 in 2022 is now $40,000. I don't know what that's about. Maybe I should do a little bit more looking into it. But I just printed this out earlier today, and you can pretty much count on me to watch money and to see where it's going to go. Because it's not my money, it's yours.
Thank you. Our next question, the focus is on Potter Valley. A regional agreement has been developed to remove the Scott and Cape Horn dams, create a new diversion system from the Eel River to the Russian River during high flows, and expand storage on the Russian River side. The Board of Supervisors has expressed support for this approach and the work of the Inland Water and Power Commission. Do you support this direction? And how would you approach balancing water needs, environmental concerns, and regional cooperation moving forward?
So this is this is a thorny subject, as we all know. It's extremely complex. At this point, we have no other viable presentations of options other than taking down the dam. If somebody's got other ideas out there, it'd be great to hear them. But right now, taking down the dam is where we're headed. It's the right thing to do for the eel, and that's where we're going. The question is, where we should be focusing our time and our energy in this county is, what are we going to do about that to minimize and mitigate the impact to our residents? The economy of that downstream is very important. It's a significant part of our economy. There are ways that we can mitigate that. The civil engineers have come up, the Army Corps of Engineers have come up with multiple solutions for this that need to be looked at thoroughly, and there are probably some that we haven't come up with that we need to look at. Those are the ways that we improve our storage over time and allow that flow of water to continue for those residents through the dry season. If we spent our time focusing on that solution rather than focusing on the issues that are dividing us about the dam itself, I think we'd make much better progress in coming up with something that's going to work for everybody in our county. This has been turned into a very political issue and a very divisive issue across our county, and that is something that we need to address directly. We need to work together on the solution, and the solution is, how do we fix the storage, and how do we make sure that the people downstream have ongoing water during the times that they need it? The issue is not the dam itself and whether that's coming down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. I understand that this is clearly an important topic for Mendocino County, not just Potter Valley or downstream or upstream. So what I really want to talk about is how, we know water is essential for our public safety, for our agriculture, right? For our people, for people to have water, just running water in their homes as well, and our farmers that are out there. So what it means to me, there's no simple answer in this. There is no yes or no, I support and we're doing these things. The thing is that we're in a situation where we need to think about water. How are we going to make sure our communities have water? Some of the things, I've been out listening and having conversations, and there's a FERC process going on. PG&E has already entered that. They've been in that for a year. The reason why we have a diversion plan right now is because it was put into the FERC. If we're not going to hold PG&E accountable, then we need to come up with the money to figure out how to have storage. That's the truth. So because it's in there, we need to tell PG&E they need to be financially responsible. Right? We need to get a hold of FERC and start holding PG&E accountable because they're a public utility system. They came in here, they created that, now they're leaving and they're going to leave us with this mess? I don't think so. I'm strongly committed to standing up and having those conversations and working alongside the Board of Supervisors on this subject and continue moving forward and finding out how we can raise the dam if we need to, where's that money going to come from, and make sure that we have money for storage system. Thank you.
Yeah, concerning the Potter Valley project, for the county as a whole, I think that might be probably the biggest issue that we face today. Lake Pillsbury was the primary source of water when there was a fire going on. The people that grow the grapes in the southern end of the county and then down into Sonoma County, they rely upon that too. Now, they're largely getting their water out of wells in Sonoma County. But if they don't have that replenishment coming in from the Russian River, they're hurting. I also know that at the federal level, there was a letter of intervention by Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins on this account. So I'm thinking that anything about moving forward with not just decommissioning, but destroying the dam is probably not going to happen. I think it would be very wise to take this dam and refurbish it as is required. I think this would be a good thing to do. Just the whole concept of destroying such a valuable piece of infrastructure, it grates on my sensibilities. I just don't see how this is going to get us to where we want to go. This will be a very hard thing. And as far as the salmon go and the trout, I very, very much want to see things get rectified to where they're doing well again. And I don't think it was the dam that was causing it, because I have old timers tell me that back in the 40s and 50s they saw lots and lots of fish in there that you could walk on it. But yet that dam has been there since the 20s. It's the pike minnow. This is the problem. They're eating the little ones. Thank you.
Well, my opinion somewhat echoes what has already been said. I don't think we can let those dams be commissioned, period. Have you been up there to see them? They're magnificent. And more importantly, they're critical infrastructure. Deleting a huge water resource like that is insane. Where's the money going to come from to rebuild that water infrastructure? Who pays for the fire risk when we lose that reservoir? Yes, I understand the argument about returning 100 miles of river, but humans are part of nature too. Whether the diversion should have happened in the first place is a debate we can have, but the dams are there now. Removing them at this point is stupid, expensive, and possibly even ecologically harmful. If the people who want to remove the dams feel that strongly about it, let them come up with the money. Don't make Mendocino County taxpayers fund someone else's environmental project while our roads fall apart.
Our next question focuses on housing. What strategies would you use to support housing development while preserving open space in agriculture?
That's a great question. And in all honesty, I haven't thought about that. because you're talking about agriculture and open space, and we got a lot of that in the county. So, but one thing that I do know is that out in my conversations with folks, there are folks that are willing to give up some of their property for housing issues. I was actually at the Food Security Town Hall 3 just, a week ago, and there was some folks that came that had 30 acres that they wanted to donate for agriculture and housing, which is a nice little switch, right? The other thing that I've been going to is the Willits Shelter Action Group, and they're looking at building tiny homes for our unhoused, and they're looking for property. So really my focus would be looking for the folks in the community who are able to give that property, who want to work with these other organizations and bringing them together and helping facilitate that. The other thing that I've heard in here in Willits, and I haven't had time to really research it, is that our high school actually rezoned some of their property for housing. And if we did something like take the CTE program for construction and turn that into our young people building homes on that property, we would be able to offer some affordable housing for our teachers and maybe some other people that are working in our community. Those are some of the ideas. I would love to do more investigation and research on that, and if you have any suggestions, please see me afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I know that there's actually a requirement for building more housing. It was handed down, I think, by the state legislature for doing this very thing. This is a little difficult because ordinarily, housing is something that is paid for by people that want the housing. But the state government is mandating that this be put into place when there's not necessarily any private buyers for it. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. Now, maybe it's something I've missed something there, but I've read over this very, very heavily. Now, to make affordable housing, it pretty much comes down to making houses that are just simply smaller. And when you're talking about balancing it between agriculture and where people live, well, it's very unlikely you're going to have some agricultural product being grown on the same piece of ground that the house is sitting on. And I get that, and I understand it very well. I think the best that the county could do is to be very, very favorable to anybody that wants to build a house. Instead of maybe the regulations or the fees that are required to do this, maybe they can be moderated somewhat so as people can reasonably get this house. And then once they get building, they need to be let alone so as they can proceed. They have to get this done. Because time is money, and you can't just be dragging out people for too long.
Thank you.
So for me, the affordable housing issue comes back to an efficiency of government issue, and the fact that it is really, really difficult to even pull a permit to build houses here, even if the activity could happen anyways. Oftentimes I find that planning and building actively obstructs you. I don't know how many of you have actually tried to pull a permit to build a house, but it's over and over finding one little box to check and another little box to check, and effectively making your project unfeasible. One of the tools that we have is the accessory dwelling unit. And a lot of these parcels up here are already qualified for one or possibly two accessory dwelling units, which would help our housing issue greatly. And with more stock of housing, the housing would get more affordable. But a lot of that comes back to, again, running our government efficiently so that people, when they have a project, that they can actually do it. Another one is tiny home villages or some expanded Class K, something like that would just make it, we need to get out of the way of people who want to do economic activity so that they can actually do it. We should be rolling out the red carpet, not the red tape. I don't support any necessarily reducing minimum parcel sizes, but I would support something like annexing more parcels into the city of Willits or having denser housing near the city centers.
So this is it's a land use and a zoning issue. It's a pretty basic land use and zoning issue at that. Housing isn't just a housing issue. It affects every part of our county life. The lack of housing as a whole, and affordable housing in particular, is a core issue here. It impacts our ability to attract and hire. It impacts our ability to live within our means and to support a healthy growth of the economy within the county. If there's no place to live, we can't grow our economy. So this is important that we look at this. The way to do that without impacting our environment and the ag land is to look at our existing housing stock and our existing land within the built areas. One thing that the county did years ago was an amnesty for buildings that were out of code. We didn't do a very good job with it. We had almost nobody take us up on that. Santa Cruz County did an amazing job with this. They took a step-by-step approach, whereas Mendocino said, it's all or nothing. You have to come 100% up to code, and you still have to pay your fees. Santa Cruz said, you know what? Make it safe to live in first. Let's just get the houses out there on the market so they're safe to live in. You can start earning rent off of that, and then we'll take the next step, and we'll improve the next level of building and planning requirements now that you've already been earning money and are able to spend that. The other thing to look at is ADUs, townhouses, and smaller units. Fort Bragg has done some work on this. They've got a pre-approved concept ADU that people can take off the shelf and run it through the process with very little rubber stamping through building and planning. And that's my time. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is also focused on housing. In order to preserve an adequate inventory of housing units for Mendocino residents, should there be a limit on short-term rental permits, including permits specifically issued to corporations?
I've only briefly read about this, and I've found that there are some corporations, non-private individuals, if you will, that are taking extraordinary advantage of housing markets, and I think this gets in the way of people who actually need the houses being able to compete and get them effectively. I'm not sure quite what else to say on that. I certainly want to see more affordable housing going in, and I will certainly do everything I can at the county level to make sure that happens. But I can see where there's going to need to be more study on this to see what will work and what won't, and I'm very mindful about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll bring this right back to the planning and building issue. I don't really think the problem is necessarily vacation homes. I think the problem is that the county, it's too difficult to even get a permit to build a house. Is in regards to corporations, like a little bit ago, we saw BlackRock come in, or not necessarily here, but in general, they went around and they bought a bunch of single-family homes. That was kind of new. That's a problem. I wouldn't support anything like that, but as far as economic activity here, I think we need to take whatever we can get, and if that comes in the form of rental houses, then I'm in support of that. I'd also be in support of a limited amount. Maybe they have to be owner, like maybe you get 1 or 2 per person. But again, I think the problem is that it's just simply too hard to build here, and so nobody will do it. It's too hard, and you go to do a feasibility study on it, and you just decide, you know what, the juice is not worth the squeeze on this. Why would I build here when it doesn't pencil? So again, I think the affordable housing fix is with planning and building reform.
So I do agree to some degree that we're in this position because we don't have enough housing, and that's the core what we just talked about needs to be done first. The more houses, if we had enough houses, this wouldn't be an issue. That being said, as far as the corporations go, my thought on that is the same as with businesses. We can't and we shouldn't restrict and prevent them from doing this, but we should be giving preferential treatment to locally owned people who want to rent out their house on a short-term basis. That should be second in line to people's homes. So the first priority is making sure that we have enough homes for the people who live here, and then we can have locals renting out their houses, and then maybe downstream a little bit we can talk about larger corporations doing the rentals. The thing to keep in mind about these rentals, and this is more of an issue in the higher tourist areas than inland and in District 3, but this is a potential source of income for the county. Transit occupancy tax, which we don't do a great job on collecting on short-term rentals right now, is a great source of income for many counties. We have no setup with Airbnb or the other organizations for collecting that. We rely on the people who own the house and are renting it out through those to voluntarily turn that in. If we had, like other counties, do a direct connect with Airbnb, we'd be seeing more income, which would be an economic, a way to help with the economy here. But again, it's homes first for the people who live here. Then we can start looking at Airbnbs and vacation rentals and hip camp and all of those. They're good economic stimulus. And then we can maybe open it up to corporations and larger organizations, even if they're locally owned, to start renting those. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really want to say that I think short-term housing and corporations coming in here for that type of economy is not a bad thing. And here's why. If we take that and look at it, that's going to bring in tax dollars, and that's going to help our budget deficit. When we talk about housing for people in our area, those are two separate things in my mind, and they need to be worked on at the same time. Our issues here aren't about zoning and too many people having, Airbnbs, because if you think about it, an Airbnb, when I go and stay in an Airbnb, those things, they cost quite a bit per night. Am I not right? And our working class and our young people that are in college or, just getting on their feet, they can't afford to rent an Airbnb home. So, we need to look at our infrastructure. We need to look at why are we not building? It's not just because of the permitting process. We're talking about our infrastructure. Do we have that in the county? No. We need water, right? Septic systems, Willits, Laytonville, Round Valley, Covelo. Those areas in District 3 really need to be looked at so that we can start having a better economy when it comes to tourism, just like the coast has. So those are the things that I'm thinking about. And so my approach would be different depending on the community. And in the places like Willits, we want to look at Little Lake Valley Groundwater Management Plan in 2020 happened. And then there's also the groundwater resiliency improvement project. So just kind of keep those things in mind instead of saying, no way, we don't want those here. That's my take. Thanks.
Our next question focuses on public safety. And the question, with federal grant funding for wildfire and disaster resilience eliminated, what actions and alternatives would you pursue to ensure public safety?
Okay, well, one of the fights I actually got into with the county was over defensible space, and I think that'd probably be where I would start. A good defensible space, good building materials, possibly shifting some of that risk back to homeowners. I think if you weren't able to even have fire insurance, you'd probably be a lot more careful how you took care of your house and how fireproof it was. Also, back in the day, there was loggers that used to put out fires. We didn't have CAL FIRE, or before that, what was it, CDF. It wasn't really the place of government to come be your nanny and protect you from everything that might come your way. That was the community, that was the landowner that bared that risk. So without grant funding for that, I think that risk needs to shift back to the people that it impacts, and that's the landowners. Thanks.
So I've spent years now working with the Fire Safe Councils. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. The work that needs to get done to protect people's houses is multifold. The biggest issue that we face is not the money and where do we get the money from and where do we spend it. It's education. There's a lot that people can do on their houses if we just educate them on the right process. That education is something that the county government can support. The county fire safe, and they do in a way right now, they've helped fund the county fire safe council, and the county fire safe council does an amazing job of spreading that education throughout the county. The first step when we go out and we do these home assessments is to talk to them about what are the easy low-hanging fruit that you can do to protect your home. That's inexpensive, quick, easy stuff. Then we give them a list of here's the stuff that you're going to need to prepare a little bit longer for. You're going to need to save up some money for. You're going to need to talk to a contractor. And that is the stuff when it starts getting difficult for some of our residents because they don't have the money to do that. That's where these grants come in. So we need to make sure that folks are doing those first easy to do steps before we even start talking to them about the more expensive stuff like home hardening and changing the actual structure of their house. That money is coming in from CAL FIRE at this point. We're getting a fair amount of that money, but we need to make sure that our Board of Supervisors and all the others up here are pushing the state to continue that flow of money. That fire science has proven time and time again that it is correct and it is accurate in how it can predict and what changes need to be done to both the building and the area around the building to protect it. It is not something that is on each individual owner. It affects us all as a county. If a fire comes through here and our houses get wiped out, then we're all impacted by it. It's not just an individual person thing. Thank you.
So I would tend to agree as well as what Eric had just stated, that, we really do need to continue working to harden our homes and have that type of safety. As far as not having grants, I think it's important for us to understand that as a supervisor, it's our job to talk to the state, right, to make sure that that funding is coming through. And then the other thing is there is a, I believe it's Measure P. There's a tax, and we pay into that, and that is for, and I could be wrong, but I don't have that note in front of me. But that tax actually pays into our fire departments, and we want to make sure to keep supporting that and making sure that our fire departments have that funding. The other thing that we do really well as a community is we come together. The fire departments around our county, they have barbecue fundraisers and different things, and showing up and supporting those things, so that, because a lot of our folks that are fighting our fires are volunteers. It's not just CAL FIRE. So it's important to support those folks. And then also, the kids that are going, young people, our children that are going to school at the high school, and then coming through, eventually coming through our college CTE program. We want to make sure that we uplift them and support them and show up to those types of fundraisers as well, because as a community, we're always stronger, and we know that. We came through the 2017 fire, and that was pretty devastating. I will never forget that night. My TV turned on in the middle of the night unexpectedly, and it was because that fire had started down in Redwood Valley. So, I do want to say that we came back together resiliently. The county worked really hard to make sure that services were going out between our law enforcement, our fire departments, and then we have our EOC. It's an Emergency Operations Center, and I'm pretty intimate about that place too, because I work there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, as someone who lives in Brook Trails, I've been there for 46 years. I'm keenly aware of the fire danger that I have. Being that I'm the only house on the street, I think there's a great likelihood that if the roads are blocked and I can't get out, my last-ditch attempt is to soak a towel really well, throw it over my head, and run about 100 yards and go jump into Lake Emily. So I'm real clear on this. You know, this is not just something that will happen at some point in the future. It'll come. The last big fire that went through Brick Trails was, I think, about 1955, thereabouts. I can tell by the carbon on the stumps that I see out there. But I'm very much appreciative of the Mendocino County Fire Councils that are going out of their way. They're trying to train people to show what they need to do in order to survive a potential fire hazard that'll be very, very difficult. Now, me personally, back 4, 5, 6 years ago, I was approached by a man named Todd Patton of CAL FIRE, and he had an idea. He told me, Clay, I understand you own this piece of property in Brook Trails. It's pretty large. There's a road going through it that's called the Furco Road, and it was the road that extended from the highway through the old LP mill site and up into Brook Trails. And the idea that he had was, how about we make this to where we're going to make the Furco Road a road where firefighting vehicles can come in, and we'll make Sherwood Road 2 lanes going out. And I go like, I love it. And so I got that signed along with my neighbor Richard Padula and the other guys that owned the LP Mill site. And 2 years later, during I think it was called the Oak Fire, it worked. And so I'm very grateful for that. But home hardening, if you got a water tank where you can put out some a pump with some water with a 500-gallon tank, it will serve you well. Thank you.
So this question is from the audience. Do you believe the 2020 and 2024 federal elections were fair and accurate? What is your political party affiliation? How will you handle ICE when it comes to Mendocino County? So we start with Eric.
The 2020 and 2024 elections were as fair as any other elections we've ever had. There's been very little evidence of fraud. I don't know if there's anything else to say about that. The findings were the findings. We can always make improvements. I spent years manning the polls, both here in Mendocino and before that in Alameda County. I was an inspector and judge for the elections for a total of 10 years total. I've never seen any problems. I know the process deeply, and we have no problems with elections fairness. The second issue the second question was party affiliation, and I am a member of the Democratic Party. The third question was,
How will you handle ICE when it comes to Mendocino County?
tell them to go away. I mean, they listen to me, right? That's a complicated issue. It's a legal issue. We have limitations as to what we can do. Those limitations are set by federal law and state law. We can make additional laws locally in Mendocino that say what we allow, and we should be looking at that. They can't supersede state or federal. And a good example of that is what the state has done with the mask law, saying if you're going to be in California, you can't be wearing masks. They couldn't tell ICE that they can't come here. That would be going against federal law. We can look at that countywide and see what we can do to make sure that our sheriff has real clear outline of what he can and can't do and what should be doing if ICE comes here. And then, of course, we need to be supporting our citizens who are impacted. Anybody who is taken from ICE, who is a resident here, and also the families that are impacted when they are taken. There's a lot that we can do to support them, and there's several organizations that are doing that. We need to support them. Thank you.
Thank you.
This question is about getting to know Buffy, right? So 2020 and 2024 elections were fair. I mean, at least I think so. And I'm a Democrat. And as far as ICE is concerned, what I would do as a supervisor, I would work with the sheriff. Because I work in the sheriff's office, I know that we have policy. The sheriff upholds the state law. ICE upholds the federal law. And I also know that I trust in that because the sheriff hires DACA people to work in the sheriff's office, which is highly important, and says something about his character. The other thing is that I would work closely with the other supervisors and see what it is that we could actually do. I know that people have put in, other counties have put in resolutions and tried to create some policies around that. But we really would have to have conversations with our county council to see what it was that we could do. And also support all of the local agencies that are helping, like Nuestra Alianza. They're doing a great job working with our families here in our community. And then there's also UVA, that's Ucaya Veciones en Acción in Ucaya. And I also know that NCO has some information out that they're giving to families, and First Five. So really paying attention to those organizations and partnering with them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Concerning the election in 2020, locally I think we were fine. I did hear some accounts that came in from across the country, of which I have about as much grounding in what really happened as any of you do, because all we're doing is we're looking at the internet and we're going, well, what happened here? Now, there was one account that I heard that came in from Michigan where there was a poll worker that had been there all day, and about 3 o'clock in the morning they had several more ballots come in, and the ballots that were purportedly mail-in ballots. The poll worker was questioning why these ballots had never been folded. They'd never been in an envelope, but yet they were recording them. Now, I never heard the outcome of that, but it does sound suspicious. I also heard a report from Pennsylvania where they issued 1.8 million mail-in ballots, and they received 2.4 million back. Is this true? I don't know, but this is the report that I'm hearing. Okay, and the second thing was...
The second part was, what is your political party affiliation? And the third is, how will you handle ICE?
Oh, okay. Actually, I've been a registered Republican since 1978. I still am to this day. And as far as ICE goes, I'm not quite sure what we can do there, because we're running up against federal law here. The problem I'm seeing is like say when you say we want a sanctuary here. Well, if you're an elected official and you're saying this, this is going up against Title 8, Section 1324, A1A, Roman numeral 4, which carries a 5-year prison sentence for encouraging and instigating illegal immigration. It's something I want to avoid.
Thank you.
Okay, in regard to election integrity, the evidence seems to be clear. Multiple audits, court cases, investigations across states found no widespread fraud that would have changed outcomes. Election officials, many Republicans, certified the results. The 2020 to 2024 elections were fair by any objective measure. That said, dismissing people's concerns outright is a mistake. When you say the election was rigged, what you're often saying is, I don't trust institutions anymore, and that's a real problem worth addressing. The fix isn't indulging conspiracy theories, it's transparency that rebuilds trust. Things like open source voting machines, hand count audits of random precincts, same-day registration and verification, possibly public observation of ballot counting. As far as political party, I'm a registered Democrat, but my views are more like the Democrat Party of 10 or 15 years ago. In regards to ICE, like has been said, I think it's actually the Sheriff's Department that would mostly be deciding that, more so than the board. But the sheriff decides cooperation level with ICE, and the board controls the budget and can set expectations, though they can't directly order law enforcement what to do. So I assume that would be working with the Sheriff's Department on that. I personally am no fan of the immigration system here. I've married an Ecuadorian woman, and just to go through the I-130 process myself has cost thousands and thousands of dollars and a huge amount of time, and it's way harder for me as a U.S. citizen to even get my loved one a visa. And that's not right, and neither is it right to tear apart families that are here regardless of however they got here.
Okay, the next question is also an audience question about our environment. What is your favorite and/or most valuable natural environmental asset of Mendocino County? And how would you propose to protect it?
So I think it's important to state that I'm a Sherwood Valley Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians member. I grew up in Pinoleville on the reservation in Ukiah. And the most important part of Mendocino County is all of it. My ancestors have been here since time immemorial. Honestly, if we could preserve this county in all of its beauty, that's what I stand for. How does that work with all of us here? And so my goal isn't to stop us from being productive members of our society, but how do we come together? How do we restore, right, the restorative process of our land, right? My ancestors are in this ground. And I know it's about 13,000 years because Caltrans pulled out artifacts that said so. And my people believe we've been here since the beginning of time. So I would just ask you, you know, even if you didn't vote for me, think about that. Think about how we continue going on without destroying and taking everything. This is a beautiful land, and I know most of you have moved here from other areas because you love it so much. So I just ask, what are we setting forward for our youth, right? What are our generations, what are we leaving them? You know, and there's a lot of great projects that are happening in this county, and one of them happens to be over there in Noyo with the flotation devices that are making energy, that are desalinating water. So let's keep working towards those types of projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably at the very core of everything we are is water. And this is something that we have to be very, very careful of. Where I grew up on the north side of Steel Lane in Laytonville, there's a lot of water there because of the underground tributary that runs underneath that property, as well as several others. But I know that the people down the street, when I was quite young, we were hauling water to their place because all they had left was mud. I'm very, very mindful about this. Maybe it's because I've just been here for so long and I've seen so much of it. And sure, there's other things that we could be very careful about. The trees we have. There's some very, very, very nice things there. But when it comes right down to it, I don't think we're going to beat running into a problem with water. And to protect it, well, the best that we can do is maybe ration it on those occasions when we have droughts. But at the end of the day, we're beholden to, I don't know, God, the weather patterns. We can't just make it rain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as far as favorite, I'd probably have to say Lake Mendocino because I really like boating there and wakeboarding. And that kind of comes back to the issue of the diversion in the dams that we talked about earlier and why it would be not very smart to let those come down. Obviously, our huge redwood trees up by Leggett, Dos Rios River, and like Clay said, everything revolves around the watershed, specifically the interconnected system of rivers, aquifers, and forests that make this place survivable. It's everything at once. It's economic, without reliable water, cannabis, wine, agriculture collapse. It's environmental. The redwoods and the salmon runs depend on stream flow and groundwater. It's our quality of life. Every resident, rich or poor, depends on the same aquifers and wells. And then there's justice. Water scarcity hits marginalized communities first and hardest. As far as a specific asset, I'd probably say the Eel River watershed. It's the largest in the county, supports the most agriculture, faces the most pressure from agriculture and climate change, and has the most to lose. Championing its restoration isn't abstract, it's concrete work that benefits Willits, Laytonville, and the coast.
Thank you.
So I'm actually gonna agree with Buffy here. The diversity of the environment in this county is my favorite thing. It's what attracted to me here. It's what I love about it. I apologize to the person who asked the question, but I can't pick one particular thing. As far as what we will do to protect the environment here, mankind is at the top of the food chain. We have the power. Whether you believe that we were put there by some higher force, or whether we put ourselves there the conclusion is the same, that we have a responsibility to act as good stewards for the environment. This is for several reasons. The beauty, I don't think I need to convince anybody of that. The responsibility that we have morally to the environment, I don't think I need to convince anybody of that either. What is also important and helps people understand why the environment is a priority for us and why we should protect it is that it is also one of the biggest definers of public health. The air we breathe, the water we drink, all of that impacts health. It's asthma rates, it's cancer rates, all of that are impacted by how we treat our environment. In addition, it's one of our strongest economic assets. The recreation, the agriculture, the tourism, the fishing, all of these things bring money into our county and make it important that we protect it. So it is not just a moral issue, it's an economic issue and it's a public health issue. Helping everybody understand that, whether they're an environmentalist or not, is how we get everybody on board in protecting the environment.
This question focuses on communication and collaboration. Recent investments and planning efforts aim to diversify the local economy following the decline of the cannabis industry and the impact of the 101 bypass. What strategies would you pursue to diversify and support economic development in our district and the county?
Well, for diversifying what was it,
What strategies would you pursue to diversify and support economic development?
to support economic development. A lot of this goes back to, the diversity part of it is whatever the people would like to do. And it should be in the county's best interest to make sure that whoever is pulling out a permit is going to be successful in doing it. Because if they're successful in doing it, over time, those successes and that money is going to come back to support the county better. And I'd very much like to see that. I know as far as the cannabis industry goes, it's been hit very, very hard. I'm not sure how well that this is actually going to pan out over time, but I think now is the time that we ought to just take the 10A17 ordinance and set it to one side. I don't expect there's going to be any appreciable amount of money coming from this. I would hope that there would be a lot of other things that would take its place. Anything that's physical in particular would be very, very important. I know when I look at like Silicon Valley, for example, well, they're successful because of silicon. But I certainly don't want it quite that big here. I think that would be a little bit abusive for this community. But we do need a physical problem, or a physical item that will take its place. As far as cannabis goes, I'm at the point, and I'm not a cannabis user. I'm just a fair businessman, and I would very, very much like to see cannabis treated like any other agricultural product, Do you have enough water for it? Do you have enough power to do what you need to do to process or pack it? And that would probably go a long ways towards making things go a lot better for us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, to me, everything comes back to planning and building. We can't just make people do economic activity here. We have to make it attractive for them to do so. And so far, in my experience, it's been obstruction all the way. This seat obviously only has one vote out of 5 on the board, but I would entertain something like essentially a menu for permits where you can walk in, you can pick your permit that you want, you pay your fee, and there's not much red tape after that. Obviously, there's going to be issues of density and some check boxing, but it doesn't have to be anything near what it has been so far. No more call for consultation black boxes. Every permit has a flat fee, required docs list, and a timeline guarantee. There's things like pre-approved plans for create a library for vetted ADU designs or ag buildings, templates, commercial facades, just any way that we can make it easier to get the permitting done. You might have a concierge service for major employers. If someone's bringing 20 jobs and they get a dedicated staffer who walks them through the department and actually gets the permits through. Because all we can do is get out of the way and hope that we can get whatever economic activity will come here. Also, something like a sunset clause, where if the county doesn't respond within 30 days, your permit just gets approved. Something like that. Another thing is remote work infrastructure, like broadband expansion would be a great, Starlink has helped with that, but good internet will make a lot of remote jobs feasible here that weren't before. But yeah, just like I said, basically in my experience, all the problems have stemmed from not being able to get the permit from the government itself. So back to rolling out the red carpet instead of the red tape and getting people permissions to do whatever it is that they want to do within reason.
So I think the last long-term successful economy in Mendocino was the tribal economy. I mean, they were thousands and thousands and thousands of years with no problems. Since then, we've been boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust, and we need to get away from that concept. Those are great money makers, but we need to have a better core structure for our economy here. That means we need to be encouraging businesses that bring money into the county, not just circulate money and not that extract money. We need to encourage local ownership of businesses and industry. The external ownerships, the larger corporations that come in with 20 jobs that are low paying, we're not going to say no, but that's not who we should be supporting. We should be promoting the ones that keep the money in here and aren't extracting it out and aren't extracting our resources. We need to make it easier for small businesses to operate. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier about making changes in the county culture and helping the people who work there find a way to yes for our residents. We need to grow the job skills that we have locally with local trade education. MCOE has done a great job with that. So has Mendocino College. I'm really looking forward to the new center that's opening up here with fire trade and healthcare in Willits. I think that'll make a great difference. We also need to increase local higher education access. So 4-year programs so people can learn locally and not leave the county to get their 4-year degree, and then they can start businesses here locally. And that may mean working with Mendocino College and Sonoma State, that Sonoma State actually offers 4-year programs here, just nobody really knows that they do that. We also need to encourage growth in areas that we already excel. We've got a really peculiar skill set being a rural county. We've got a lot of creativity. We can take that and turn that into offering rural products and rural processes for other counties to take up. And that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, for me, the priority is supporting what's already in place, our small businesses, our local food production, tourism that benefits economies, and our workforce training that connects people. That also includes sectors like healthcare, education, and skilled trades. So I've been out and I've been having conversations, and I think this is really important. So I was talking with Assemblymember Chris Rogers a few weeks ago, and he had mentioned GoBiz, and I was like, what is GoBiz? So GoBiz is really important for us to recognize because California has already created a framework through the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, GoBiz, and California Jobs First. And Mendocino County is part of the Redwood region in that effort. It's been going on for quite some time. I've been a part of the Redwood region as a tribal member, showing up to those meetings via Zoom. So the regional plan recognizes the strengths of rural counties like ours and focuses on sectors that fit our economy, including agriculture, food production, tourism, outdoor recreation, clean energy, and workforce development. So to me, the question isn't whether or not we have a plan, it's we do, and are we organized enough to get on board? We don't want to be left behind. So as a supervisor, I'd work to make sure that District 3 is not left behind. That means aligning county priorities with the state that's already investing in this. Also making sure that it makes sense for us and educating our community, because a lot of our community doesn't know about these things. When I had mentioned it to anyone, they were like, what are you talking about, Buffy? So I made sure to do a little research, and I'll continue to do those kind of things. And how this looks in our county, just for an example, is the Cannabis Equity Grant. And you can go to the Mendocino County website, and you can look that up and see that it's brought in, I think, about $6 million to help relieve some of the pressures. Thank you.
Next question is from the audience. What is your stance on Jackson State Forest regarding future logging, recreation, and tribal co-management?
Well, that's a little bit of a tricky one for me because on one hand, I feel like it's public property and so it should be generally preserved for the public use. But then it's also my understanding that it was called a demonstration forest so that we could demonstrate logging practices on it. There's all these issues that come into balance, and one of which is fire. So if we say, okay, we're going to preserve it perfectly how it is, don't touch it, then that could potentially create more of a fire issue. If we allow too much commercial activity on it, then we might be destroying an asset that took hundreds of years to get, and we really should be stewarding it better. I have on my property, I have a huge madrone tree that is right in the way of some sunlight that I really needed over the last decade. And the decision I made there was that the tree was older than me, and that even that I owned the property, that it still had a right to be there. So I left it today, and it still stands. So I guess it's kind of a hard question to directly answer. I would say some responsible harvesting, but if a tree reaches a certain age, I don't know if that's 500 years or what exactly that would be, but I feel like if a tree reaches a certain age, it has more right to be there than we do. So I guess that's my answer.
Thank you.
Jackson, I look out over Jackson from where I live. It's something that is a daily part of my life. Every day when I leave the house, I see Jackson Forest. There's no question that the tribes have a basic right to that, and they should be part of the decision making. That's pretty black and white. As far as what we should be doing with the forest, that's where we need to be careful. The idea that mankind should be doing anything is sometimes what gets us into trouble. We make these decisions that we know what's best, and then we find out 20 years later that, oh no, that actually wasn't the best thing to do. Now we're going to try this. And then we go do that, and we find out that that wasn't the best thing either. We need to be very careful about what we decide is good management of that forest. The problem is we've messed it up so badly now that we need to be doing something. We need to be doing something to bring it back to health. There are a bunch of different ideas about what that looks like. Logging for commercial purposes probably does not fit into that. Logging as a concept for forest health does have its place in maintaining that forest health and bringing that forest back to the natural state it would have been if we hadn't messed it up in the first place. This is where it kind of gets into the nitty-gritty, where we need real expertise from the local tribes, from foresters, and from the people who have been working in Jackson for a long time to understand what does that path look like. It doesn't necessarily mean we're not cutting down another tree, but it also doesn't mean we're doing commercial logging in Jackson. The change of mandate is a good direction. We just need to refine that a little bit and do some more work on the language so that we're very clear about what that means and what liberty that gives us in that forest.
So just a little story, really quick. I'll try to make it fast. But if you don't know, I'm going to tell you. I support Jackson State demonstration moving from a logging first model to a restorative process. And I have been a part of that process way before it became popular with this assembly bill. My tribe has been in conversations with Cal Fire, Caltrans, all state agencies for quite some time. So the reason why I believe this should happen is because of the long-term health of the forest, wildfire resilience. There are things that we can learn. We've had plenty of time to learn how to log, right? So now let's learn how to restore the forest and still have some thinning done and logging happening, and it just makes sense to me. The other thing is that I really think that we need to respect tribal knowledge and the local voices. Those folks have been in that forest for quite some time, and so they understand how the biodiversity is working, what's happening in that forest. So we don't want to push them out. There is a big issue, though, and it's been talked about at the Board of Supervisors about the funding. When we pass assembly bills like AB 36 with no funding behind it, we have a little bit of an issue. The thing is that we need to put money in it in order to hire all the people that we're going to need to have a restorative forest and all of the work that's going to come into that. So that bill needs to be revised. So if you have a chance, take a look at it. Make sure you put in your public comment. Thank you.
Yeah, the Jackson Demonstration State Forest, it has been operating about 79 years now. It's had a very, very good record. It's worked extremely well. I think at this point, it's probably not a wise thing to start changing things. This is a living laboratory. It is designed and it's specifically set up for harvesting timber for the wood industry here. That's its whole purpose. To change that to where it no longer has harvesting of timber there is going to create a problem. I actually was looking into the bill, and it says they wanted to harvest the trees that are quite a bit younger. This is not a good thing to do. It's sort of like harvesting your corn before it's fully ripe. There's a long, long period of time that goes into any crop, for that matter, for it to be developed, and then you harvest it at the correct time. And the Jackson Demonstration State Forest is specifically designed for that purpose. I would much rather see it continue on as it is, as opposed to the people that do need the timber, where they have to go out to other areas and create a different plan or whatever to do that. And I don't want to see that. I think the Jackson Demonstration State Forest is a vital part of our community, and it's part of our tax base because it does create a physical product. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a two-part question, and they're not related to each other, except that this is an audience question, and they both ask you to consider these. Here's the first thing. I'll give you both of them at once. First one, would you consider eliminating the CEO position for our county? And the second, would you consider substitution of an income tax rather than a sales tax?
Count on Mendocino to come up with some interesting questions and ideas. The first one is actually something I have considered before. When I was on the civil grand jury, one of the things we looked into was the structure of the CEO versus CAO for Mendocino. It brings up a lot of questions. The financial trade-off for eliminating the CEO would mean either we go to a CAO or we go to no executive, which means the board runs the county directly. I don't know if you've ever had more than one boss. That doesn't work very well. The CAO is kind of the half in between option. That means that that person is administering but not making any executive decisions. That means that there's a whole lot more pressure on the Board of Supervisors, more work that they need to do, which means they're going to need staff. So there's an economic impact to that. All those need to be considered. It's hard to tell at this point which is the best, because the two people that we've had in that CEO position have been interesting and not, how do I say this, not quite the normal person I would have selected to put in there. So it's hard to say whether that CEO is working for our county. As for the income tax versus sales tax, that's actually something I have not looked into, and I don't like making comments or decisions on something that I haven't done my research on. It's something that if the question was, would I consider it? Yeah, I'll consider anything. I'll research it. I'll talk to the folks who know about this better than I do and understand what the implications are. And then we'll talk about it with the rest of the Board of Supervisors and make a decision. But I think that's, unfortunately, whoever asked that question, that's as much as I can give you at this point.
Thank you.
CEO and CAO, correct? Yeah. So, I mean, there are differences and there aren't differences. It really depends on the job classification and how the county lays it out. So if they decide to have a CEO or a CAO, right, they could give it the same job classification title, or they could make one lesser than the other, like Eric was talking about. Whether or not we should change that process, we would have to come up with a strategy. Because then you would be requiring not just one supervisor, but all 5 supervisors to take on other duties, where each of these supervisors, I don't know if you know this or not, they work on their own. They don't have staff, and so the CEO's office actually works, all of them work for the CEO, and then the CEO answers to the Board of Supervisors. I think what's gotten a little imbalanced, if I may say, is that it seems that the CEO has a little more power over our Board of Supervisors. So that's something that actually needs to be addressed right away. As far as the income tax and the sales tax, what are we talking about? What are we taxing? I mean, I have questions right away, right out the gate. Are we talking about business owners and we want to have you have an income tax versus a sales tax on the goods that you're selling? So I just have more questions, and I wouldn't be able to give you an educated even guess about what that was about, that question. So my apologies, and if you want to talk about it later, we can. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not real big on having a chief executive officer, and this is primarily because this is a person that's unelected who has a very significant amount of power, even more than the board itself in some ways, that is just not tenable in my mind. Now, I think the CAO is probably a better way to go, but it's something I have to look at to see what the division of duties are. When people elect their supervisors, this is a person that must be accountable, and not somebody that like a CEO. The other thing you mentioned is about the difference between a sales tax and an income tax. Well, I would have to look at that more, and it's something I would consider. But the general guiding thought that I have on this is that I've never, ever known any government to tax itself into prosperity. I think we're already carrying a fairly significant tax load as it is, and so I would probably not be in favor of it. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, in regard to, whether I would consider to dissolve the CEO position, well, that would depend a lot on how good the CEO was, and if I liked them, and if they were doing what I was expecting them to do. A good CEO, if I didn't like them, I'd be interested in getting rid of the position, but I question if the answer there wouldn't be to just simply fire the CEO. However, running everything with the board itself that takes 5 people to agree on something seems like a nightmare, especially when the problems are small or controversial. I'm not sure that requiring a majority on a 5-person board would be the best way to solve many problems. I've also seen many cases of where the board, with good intentions, votes for something, and then it later gets twisted around by staff from its original design. The cannabis ordinance was a huge example of this, where the board writes a piece of code. It looks good generally, but then when it gets down to staff, the way it actually gets applied is far different from its original design. And I don't know if dissolving a CEO would help that or not, but that's one thing in regards to governance and how successfully the board is actually in charge and can take action on problems. I see them get thwarted by their own staff a lot. In regards to taxes, I think we should get them as low as possible. I think taxation is theft, and I think if a government's going to tax us for our money, they should be very, very careful on how we're spending it. I wish we could get rid of or lower property taxes as well, but it's not allowed under state law, and we do need some way to run our local government. Property taxes are part of that. A premise to my campaign is to get the government out of our wallets. They vote to tax us every chance they get, and it needs to stop. We can't afford it.
Thank you. We have reached the end of our allotted time for questions. We've gone over a hair. And so now it's time for the closing statements from each of our candidates. 2 minutes. Buffy, could you start us, please?
I just want to thank you all for coming out today and asking the questions and listening to our answers. I want to encourage you to continue to ask us questions, meet with us, and make your vote, count. And because we are going to, one of us is going to be the one that's the voice for District 3. And I hope that you choose me, because I know how to bring our communities together. I know how to listen, and I know how to come up with practical solutions, working with those that are already in place in our county government, in those departments, in the state, and in the federal level as well. So I ask for your vote, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I know that in this crowd, there's a lot of people here that will disagree about something, and they'll probably disagree with me too. We came from different backgrounds, we came from different places, different circumstances, but at the end of the day, we are neighbors first. And when people will love their children more than they hate each other, now we have a common future. Mendocino County has everything within its grasp to do some very good and wonderful things. And I think it's time that we should reach beyond our grasp. With this in mind, I do hope that you would consider me very carefully. And I humbly ask you for your vote, and that we can go ahead and make things better, not just for the county, but for the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to promise you the world. I'm going to promise you something much smaller and much harder. I'll show up, I'll listen, I'll use every tool I have, including the ones I've built myself, to make this government work for you instead of against you. I'm a fifth-generation Mendocino County resident. My kids go to school here. My businesses pay tax here. My water comes from the same wells as yours. I'm not running to climb a ladder. I'm running because I cannot watch this place I love struggle with problems we have the tools to solve. If you are tired of politicians who will tell you what you want to hear and then disappear for 4 years, I offer you something different. Vote for me and you'll have a supervisor who answers the phone, returns the email, and actually gets things done. My name is Russell Green, and I'd be honored to have your vote.
Thank you.
So first I want to thank everyone who helped put on the night and everyone who came to listen. We appreciate hearing from you. The questions were wonderful, and please keep them coming. You've heard a lot of thoughtful ideas tonight, and I think it's clear that everybody up here cares about the county. But when you make your decision, there's one question to focus on, and that is, who do you think is best prepared to turn those ideas into real, consistent results for the county? Because that's where our county's struggled, not in identifying problems or knowing what the problems are, but in follow-through and execution. And making sure that when we have the time and the money committed, that we actually deliver outcomes that people can see and that they can rely on. That's what I spent my career doing. For more than 25 years, I did that operations and leadership, managing complex systems and large budgets and teams responsible for actually delivering results. When something wasn't working, it was my job to fix it at the root and make sure that it stayed fixed. That approach is what I brought to my work here locally too, and it's what I'll bring as supervisor. It's clear priorities, accountability, and focus on getting things done. I'm proud to have earned the endorsements of the Democratic Party, the Inland Mendocino Democratic Club, SCIU 2015, and many local community and business leaders. That support reflects their trust in my ability to do the work, but I want to be equally clear, I'm not running to represent a party, I'm running to represent the people of our district. And my approach is grounded in independent and progressive values and practical solutions. At the end of the day, this isn't about politics, it's about performance, it's about whether the government's working for you. If you want a supervisor who will focus on accountability and execution and results, who will represent everyone in the district, I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
So thank you to all the candidates for showing up and filling us with your ideas. Much appreciated. Thank you to everyone in this room. On behalf of the entire Forum Organizing Committee, thank you for your commitment to show up and for your caring about our community. I was asked to just relay one message, which is you can hear these candidates again in 2 weeks, May 2nd, on a Sunday afternoon, 3 to 5 p.m. at the Covelo Library Commons. So again, let's give ourselves a hand.